in general. Now you guys, because you came out like 4 hours, take 4 hours out of your night to come to something like this, you're a little different than most people, obviously, to invest your time like this. But most people are unwilling to do the work that it takes to get the results that they want. And that's the fact. I mean, nowadays with information marketing, it's a bunch of crap. You work 4 hours a week is what most of these guys are saying. Nobody works 4 hours a week, man. Frank Kern does not work 4 hours a week. He's a liar, you know? Butt-ass liar. You know, there's no way. There's no frickin' way. And that's what I find is they're lying. You know, first of all, most of the information marketers are lying. And but honestly, they're not doing the, you know, you got to do the work. And that's what I found, you know, having a new lease on life basically is I'm willing to do the work. I'm doing the work, actually. I'm really doing the work. The growth that I've had over the last 4 to 3 months, let's say, has been enormous. And I'll tell you why. Is, excuse me, it hurts. You know, so I'm trying, I'll work through it. I might have to sit down for a second. But I guess just having a new lease on life is, you know, well, here, this is the story I wanted to tell you. I was thinking about it on the way over. Is when I found out that I was going to die, right? I got, for you guys that don't know, I have mesothelioma, the asbestos cancer. And so 10 to 20 years ago, my Coke dealer probably cut my Coke with asbestos. That's all I can think of, you know? Because I used to be a drug addict and a drinker, right? So anyway, I'm not anymore. But that's all I can think of, because I never worked a day in my life, you know? Other than doing magic and what I'm doing now, right? So never worked like construction or something like that. So anyway, I find this out, and you typically get a year to live when you get diagnosed with mesothelioma, and that's the standard, right? So that's the mid-rate. So you're either on one side or the other of that. So I find that out, and then it turns out to not be so bad, but then the chemo doesn't work, and they give me like a month or 2 to live, all right? Now I go to Florida, I have my conference, I go to Florida, Disney World, and I end up back in the hospital last week for another 8 days. And they're like, now it really looks like crap, Eric. Now you've got like days. So here's what happened, okay? I think probably, who has goals in here? Who has written goals? Probably everybody. In this kind of room. That's very unusual in most settings, but in this kind of room it's probably 75 to 80%, which is very unusual. But anyway, so I've written goals like most of us do. So I've got long range, short term, all that, and then legacy goals, right? So when I find this out, all my legacy and long term goals all get pushed down into this little 2-month capsule and say, okay, these are the things now I have to do. I got to call Dave about my will and testament. You know, I got to call Dave right away because this has been on my list for a long time, you know, and I just haven't done it. I've got to do this. I've got these 3 books that I'm ready to write, but they're still sitting on my computer. You know, I've got all this stuff, and it all gets compressed down into this little area. And then I'm sitting there. This is the week before my super conference, and I'm sitting at my desk on a Wednesday afternoon with my feet up, just kind of looking over the whole lay of the land and where I'm at. And I realized that if I die after the holidays, I'm golden. Because I have no goals after Christmas. This is the first time in my life this has ever happened to me, man. I'm looking going, oh my God, I can die after Christmas. Now how screwed up is that, you know? But I'm dead serious. That's what I thought. So all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I had grabbed my marketing calendar off the wall, changed the year on it. You know, it was 2009, now I got a new one. But I changed the marketing calendar, and I instantly booked the hotel for next November for my super conference for next year. I booked 4 speaking gigs, 2 in September, 2 in July, and which I had difficulty doing, but I'm going to do them anyway. And then called Jim, actually the first call I made was to Jim Palmer to book a workshop, which we're doing in January on making your own mastermind information marketing business. It's going to be awesome. With Charlie, where's Charlie? Me, Charlie McDermott, and Jim Palmer are doing something in January 21st. It's going to be awesome. But so that was my first call. Because I was like, I need something in January right away, man. I got nothing in January because I'm dead. You know, I'm pushing daisies in January. This is not cool. All right, so now now it's 4 books. Actually, I just got my accountability partner. I've got 4 books that are due out. The deadline's February 9th. Okay, and 2 of them they'll be done next week, but 2 of them won't be anyway. But you know, so that's huge. Is to just change your goals, and they became legacy goals. They weren't just little. You know, geez, I'd really like to see Switzerland. I mean, I can't fly, but you know, something like that. It's not that. These are major projects. These are big goals. But now I have these huge goals, and I think people are not willing. You might hear me saying this, and you guys are different just because you're here. Honestly, you really are. But I don't think people are willing to do that kind of work that it takes to to accomplish that, you know, even the February 9th goal, I don't think people are willing to do that work. So I spent most of my day managing outsourcers. Honestly, it was most of my day to day. Let all them do most of my work. But I thought that was pretty significant, is to not have any goals at all, and then all of a sudden really get focused on what was seriously important. And I have the right attitude. I think that probably comes across in what I'm saying, but I think the attitude is you. Now, granted, I serve a loving, all-powerful God, and I think He's capable of anything. And whatever His plan is, it's His life anyway. So I mean, that's, you know, so I'm cool with that. I'm totally cool with that. I have a lot of faith in the Lord, a lot of trust. But so, well, that's the attitude right there. That's where it comes from. Quite frankly, that's the stem of the attitude. But you know, is my belief in Christ. But I could keep going on and on, because, and actually read my book. Actually, is what you want to do. Is you want to read Uncommon Success, and it'll be out in 3 weeks. Well, maybe 4 weeks. But the DVD's done. Well, no, we're working on that Thursday right there. Yeah, see, there you go. There's my outsourcer right there. So the Thursday we're working on that. We'll get that out in 2 weeks or so. But this is Oprah stuff, man. You know, this is absolutely Oprah shit. You know, and I've already visualized that. I've already been on Oprah. You know, so this is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing. And now I have all these goals. I have so many reasons to live, guys. You know, when I wake up in the morning, I wake up, man. I woke up at 5 o'clock, and I was on Skype with a buddy of mine from the UK. You know, at 5 o'clock this morning for a half hour, and we made fortune, the two of us together. But it's all relational. It's becoming so clear. Like like Dave, you know, just the people I really like and really love are just so. It's so important to me, and that's, you know, like you, I contact like 3 or 4 times. I'm getting all bushy. I'm sorry, but it's just you know, it's just good to be alive. And here's, I'm going to leave you with this. Is when I got sober, I got sober in a rehab down in Tuffcanom, Pennsylvania, and I'll never forget this. This guy said to me, this guy Ken, he's still down there. He's been there for probably 25 years, and he's the head of honcho, the rehab or whatever. But I've been sober 12 and a half years. And when I got out, the night before, I was there for 12 days. On the 11th day, he said to me, he goes, "So what are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to a meeting, I'm getting a sponsor, and I'm doing all that 12-step stuff." And he said, "All right, good." He goes, "But you're never going to stop drinking." And I went, "What?" And he goes, No. He goes, "You'll never stop drinking." I'm like, "Didn't you see me the last 12 days I was here? You know, I kept all these notes. I put my sobriety date in the spine of my the Alcoholics Big Book, you know, and I did all this, and I really studied hard." And he goes, "No," he goes, "you don't get it." He goes, "You're not going to stop drinking." He goes, "But you can get sober, Eric." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "All right, picture yourself." This changed my life. He said, "Picture yourself in the middle of a room." And he said, "That wall is not drinking, right? You turn yourself around, and this wall is getting sober." He goes, "If you're constantly looking at the wall of not drinking, Eric, eventually you're going to drink. So what you need to do is turn your ass around and constantly look at the wall of getting sober." And he said, "You'll be a sober man." I've been a sober man ever since he said that to me. And it's the same with success. If you're bitching and moaning, can you imagine somebody coming to me and bitching and moaning? I just got an email yesterday, and about, "Oh, woe is me, you know, woe is me, my poor, I forget what it was. I can't get this job done because I can't get enough magic shows in, or I can't." What? You know, it was amazing that I got this email from this guy. But it flabbergasted me that somebody would hear my story and actually do that. But it's the same with success. If we're constantly looking at the problem, it's always going to be the problem. It's always going to be there, and we'll never escape it. But when we turn ourselves around and look at the rewards and the possibilities that we have, that are right here in this room, actually have them, that are capable of, you know, we can become incredibly successful. And I think that's what I want to share with you tonight. So thank you.
Thank you so much.